And coming up in the next 30 minutes, university lecturers vow to resist any attempt to remove Vice Chancellor of KNUST after government dissolved the governing council of the university and sworn in a new one, but omitted the name of the Vice Chancellor. We'll have details of that. Also tonight, Vice Chancellors insist they have made financial provision to pay lecturers above 65 years as government pushes for removal of these lecturers from its payroll.
The way our budgets are done, we have budget approvals for the whole year. So they will be on the payroll so long as our financial clearance remains.
Also tonight, idle factories rotting across the country. Today on Newsnight, we analyze the reality of President Akufo-Addo's push to industrialize by building new factories while old ones rust.
Didn't we use money to build this factory? For 2 years, it's puzzling that we can't find investors.
An Attorney General jumps to defense of IGP as she files appeal to court decision convicting David Asante Petu of contempt.
And in business, cybersecurity analyst warns of possible attacks on firms in the capital market. We find out why in business.
Join us with your views and comments here on Newsnight. Send us a text. WhatsApp 0244 340437. My name is Evans Mensah. And we'll go to KNUST shortly, where there's still unfolding developments there regarding government decision today to dissolve the governing council and swear in a new council. One of the key controversial issues emerging from this is that the name of the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Obrebo, has been nominated from this new governing council. The Universities Association are resisting this move. We'll be going into that shortly. But let's stay with issues around education because they have a fast approaching deadline. 31st October it is for all universities, all public universities across the country to delete from their payroll all lecturers above 65 years. But tonight, the Vice Chancellors have been insisting that they already have made financial provisions to pay all these lecturers who are above 65 years. In fact, government has been meeting with the Vice Chancellors today on this very matter. At the meeting, the Vice Chancellors make their point to the Education Minister, who chaired a particular meeting today. In fact, we can hear from the Vice Chancellor of the University of Health and Allied Sciences, Professor John Japon, has been speaking to Joy News' Parker Wilson about their position and what government plans to do going forward in implementing and enforcing this directive.
What he is saying is that, yes, it's a constitutional provision. Right. However, the point that we are making, he understands and agrees with in principle. But we need to make a strong case, and he will be happy to work with us to ensure that the right things are done.
I mean, did he give the strongest indication that there's a possibility of review on this matter?
Well, I don't know what else you want me to say. I've said that he agrees with us.
Right.
That,
so he wants you to make a strong case.
Well,
that they can review the matter.
Yeah. So, the way decisions are made in this country,
right.
He as a minister cannot just issue a fiat that for university teachers allow them to go beyond this. Right. We must make a case. It must go to cabinet. Cabinet must discuss. They will have to, because otherwise, the Auditor General will come audit our payroll and strike them out. And the Auditor General is a very powerful person. And as Vice Chancellor, he may charge me for putting somebody who is above 60 years on the payroll. So, and even the President cannot defend me when the Auditor General charges me.
So are the VCs going to adhere? End of October 31, you're going to, purge from the payroll or the lectures about...
I think we've gone beyond that. We've gone beyond that.
The directive takes effect from the 31st of October.
We've gone beyond that because we had already made the financial provisions for this long ago. So it's not an issue of no money to pay them.
Okay. Yeah. So for this my campaign?
Yes.
Not for next my campaign?
No, I'm not talking about the way our budgets are done. We have budget approvals for the whole year. So it's not an issue of not having money to pay them, but we have to look into the future. Yeah, so we are, because before your budgets are approved, you make a case and you get approval. It goes through all the loops.
So I don't get this understanding, clarity. So what it means is that they will be on the payroll till the end of the year.
They will be on the payroll so long as our financial clearance remains.
And your new budget will be next year, clearly.
Yes. So we are going to make a case to ensure that it remains on next year.
Let's bring in the Vice Chancellor of the University of Health and Allied Sciences, Professor John Japon. Prof, can you hear me, sir? I think I lost him briefly. Hello, Prof.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
Yes,
Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight. So you met today. How did this meeting go? From what you just told us, your position is, and you actually explained, is not that you are resisting or defying anything. It's simply a case of there's a budget for this. We made a financial provision for this. And I'm guessing you've made this view open to the minister today.
Yes, I was actually surprised about the earlier report because there was no confrontation whatsoever. I mean, it was a very cordial meeting, and we all agreed from our side and from the side of the minister as well that these are faculty who are very necessary to keep our universities going. However, we recognize that the laws of the land require that people retire or public servants retire at 60. And in the exceptional circumstances, arrangements can be given for contracts up to the age of 65. So we all live with these laws. But we recognize that there are certain needs, and training and developing our faculty is a big challenge. So the average age of the typical professor is around 55 or thereabouts. So by the time somebody becomes a full professor, he has just about 5 years to retire. And the universities do not necessarily, benefit from what the professors are able to offer. So we all agree that we need to keep them on. The modalities of keeping them on is what this meeting was about. So there was no confrontation at all. It was an issue of pulling our thoughts together to ensure that we work within the remit of the law.
And I wonder what the Education Ministry's reaction was to the point you've made that, listen, we have the we've made financial provision ready to pay these lecturers, and that we at least the budget is already set. What was the reaction to that?
The minister's position was very clear. The minister was very supportive of this issue. What he was saying was that obviously the Auditor General is raising issues. And when the Auditor General raises issues, we need to respond. And therefore, we need to ensure that we have made a good case so that everybody who is speaking to the issue knows what we are talking about. So there was no confrontation whatsoever. It was a clear case of pulling our thoughts together to ensure that we can make a strong case to government, to the Auditor General, and all the people who are involved to make the case that we need our faculty. And it is not just professors. It looks like the discussion has focused on only professors. There are other categories of staff, maybe lecturers or senior lecturers, who may be in some very deprived disciplines. I recall when I was in the University of Ghana, there were very few professors in the Department of Mathematics. And therefore, we had to agree to extend the contract of some senior lecturers and even some lecturers, mathematics and statistics in particular, I recall. And we here, for instance, have another issue. Mental health. We don't have that many people. So if you get somebody who is retiring as a mental health specialist, and we are training the nurses and the doctors and the pharmacists, and we need a mental health specialist who is not a professor, but is qualified to teach, and we need his services. We need to make the case. And we were all in agreement of this. So I'm not sure where that reportage came from.
And from what you say, just a clear roadmap going forward. This is going to go all the way to cabinet before you can get some resolution, correct?
That was my understanding. So we, the managers of the universities, are going to make a case through the National Council for Tertiary Education and the Executive Secretary of the National Council for Tertiary Education would move this to the office of the minister. And I believe when these issues get to the minister, it has to go to cabinet for approval and all that. I guess those steps would follow accordingly. But we were very clear in our mind, and we were all trying to strategize together to ensure that we could make a good enough case.
Prof, whilst I have you here, it appears you have a lot on your plate as a vice chancellor, because this meeting was happening just at a time when there was this breaking news that the University Governing Council in KNUST has been dissolved, and we know what has happened the last few days with student rioting on one of your campuses. What's your take on how far this has traveled and the later decision by government to dissolve the Council of KNUST?
Well, I mean, as Vice Chancellor this morning after our meeting with the minister left us and we deliberated on the issues. And we were very clear in our minds that vandalism and destruction of public property should not be entertained whatsoever. We agree that the students may have an issue that they are not very happy about, but in the quest to find a solution to that, violence should never be entertained. Otherwise, then we promote the culture of violence. So we were very resolute on that front. We did not make any further comments because we were told that there was an investigative body that was collating all the views, and government was going to come up with a position on the way forward. I was on my way back to Ho when I heard that the council had been dissolved. So I haven't been able to get back to my colleagues. But obviously, I think the issue that was raised by the UTAC president is an issue of concern to many of us. But we will see.
And you're referring to the UTAC president's concern that the vice chancellor is not on this interim committee. However, we have the SRC president on the interim council.
Oh yes, I mean that issue that the UTAC president raised, the fact that the vice chancellor is not on the committee. I honestly have just seen the list of the committee members on the WhatsApp that was circulated, so I don't even know who is who. The only name I recognized there was the pro-vice chancellor who was voted into office about 2 weeks ago. That is Professor Dixon. That was the only name I could recognize. So I believe people are asking questions. Why would the pro-vice chancellor be on when the vice chancellor is not on? The others, I do not know what constituencies they represent, so I'm not able to speak to the issues. But we will seek audience with the appropriate officers involved. And then, as Vice Chancellor's Ghana, we would also make our position known. But for now, I'm unable to give you.
I mean, away from all the specifics, I mean, because you're a vice chancellor, so you may understand the law that sort of empowers you to occupy that position. Does that law require that at all times you are a member of the governing council, whether interim or permanent?
Actually, the laws that set up the universities that I have seen, actually, almost all of us derived our laws in one way or the other from the University of Ghana law, since it was the University of Ghana that came into being first. So all the universities have slight variations from what the University of Ghana has. There is no mention of an interim council. So I'm not too sure what it is. However, I can imagine that if there is a state of anarchy, government may decide to intervene. And my understanding was that this is for just a short period. so that things can be restored. Again, I'm speaking on various assumptions. I guess the question that, also hit me immediately was why the SRC president who led the demonstration that resulted in all the anarchy is on the committee when the Vice Chancellor is not on. So I would speak to my colleagues and I'll have audience with the Minister and the Minister of State to try and find out what the exact situation is. I'm
grateful that you joined us. That's Vice Chancellor of the University of Health and Allied Sciences, Professor John Japon. He is obviously a member of the Vice Chancellors Ghana. It's an association of Vice Chancellors. They have met the Education Minister today about a separate concern, and that deadline on that is counting. Let's quickly speak now to the ranking member on the Parliament's Education Committee, Mr. Peter Notchu, joins us on the telephone line right now. Mr. Notchu, thank you for your time. Your reaction to government decision to dissolve the Governing Council of the KNUST?
Thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers. Yeah, actually, we have all been following events at the KNUST, and we also feel that steps must be taken to normalize the situation of the campus so that it can return to a normal and a sound academic environment. We have been expecting, as announced, that the Chancellor of the University will meet the Governing Council and the SRC and then the management and see the way forward. And we are taken aback with this new development of dissolving the Governing Council and putting an interim Governing Council in place. Well, there are laws establishing all the universities, and you have the council over there. But our concern is that the composition of the interim Governing Council, why have you left out the Chief Executive Officer, that is the Vice Chancellor, and then the student leader? Let's assume that he led his colleague students to go on rampage, and then all those things happening in the school. Why you put him on the committee and leave out the Vice Chancellor? You see, there's some disrespect for the Vice Chancellor over there. And I can tell you that with this development and what the terms of the committee are, they can come out with recommendations that this man should not be appointed or should not go back to office as the Vice Chancellor. And I see that as a first step that the Ministry of Education has taken. So we are not happy with the development. Why put a student on the Governing Council and ignore
the Vice Chancellor? Very quickly and finally, I know Parliament is just about resuming. What is it that your committee intends to do about all this?
Well, I am tomorrow I'm going to write a letter to the committee chairman to inform the minister that we demand that he appears before the committee, because we are reconvening on Tuesday, as a matter of fact, as agency, to come and brief the committee on why they have taken that step. So that's what we're going to do.
I'm grateful that you joined us, Peter Notchu. If I listen to the Deputy Education Minister, Dr. Educhum, talking about the Vice Chancellor's absence on this committee.
Interim Management Council will give further directives as to what happens to the Vice Chancellor.
So the Council will determine whether he keeps his job or whether he gets removed?
Yeah, that will come from the Interim Management Council.
So this Interim Management Council will, in essence, determine the fate of the Vice Chancellor. And that's what the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, says they will resist. Listen to the National President of UTAG, Dr. Eric Opoku-Mensah.
I think that this is the most disappointing action taken by government with respect to what is happening on K University campus. We are appalled. We are surprised at what is happening. Look, if government decides that you're going to set up an interim management committee, government decides to put the SRC president there, forget about other major stakeholders, and forget about the Vice Chancellor himself.
And that's Dr. Eric Opoku Mensah there. So listen to Newsnight here on Joy 99.7 FM. Time for business. Hello, George.
Hi, Evans. And coming up in business, Bank of Ghana shows depositors their funds are safe as it stands ready to protect their monies, even if any bank should go down. And cybersecurity analyst warns of possible attacks on firms in the capital market. We'll find out why. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all your office essentials, and Mark Auto Parts, distributors of Chevy cars. Let's now settle for the details. Now, President Akufo-Addo is rejecting arguments that his Ghana Beyond Aid agenda is just a mere political talk as he seeks more loans from donors. Speaking at a program in Nigeria, that is the Tony Elumelu Foundation for Startup, the president said we should try and distinguish the difference between loan and aid.
Borrowing money is not aid. What President Xi Jinping offered is a 60 billion fund which African countries can access, not as aid, but as loans. If you can produce a project that the Chinese think is worth supporting, you can have access to that money, but you have to pay it back.
As the President Akufo-Addo speaking in Nigeria at the Tony Elumelu Foundation Program for Startups, and Head of Business Operations at the E-Crime Bureau, Philip Danko-Depra, has warned that Ghana's capital market is exposed to possible cyber attacks. He therefore warns managers in that area to act now to deal with the situation. Debra was speaking to Joy Business at the workshop on cybersecurity.
Well, from what we are seeing, most organizations are sort of, having issues with system vulnerabilities, and to the extent that they don't know. And it's important to expose them by bringing their awareness level as to the potential threats that are existing. So much that in going back, management can implement certain policy programs to ensure the cyber attackers don't take advantage of the systems we are running on.
So what does the regulator of this sector has to say about this? Reverend Daniel Ogbamitete is Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
We just have to be on our toes, and at the end of the day, we are keeping in mind protecting investors and also protecting the integrity of the market. So to the extent that cyber crime or e-crime can be a potential hazard to our industry.
Reverend Daniel Ogbamitete is Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, the Bank of Ghana has indicated together with government, they stand ready to protect depositors' funds, and therefore there is no need to panic. The regulator assurance is coming at a time when the sector is still being hit by some panic withdrawals, as is also spread to other areas. Let's hear from the advisor to the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Benjamin Amoah.
We have demonstrated that those banks which are not safe and sound, we allow them to go. It's not easy to allow a bank to die, even though it is important that we should, if necessary. So there is free entry when you meet the basic requirements, and free exit when you don't comply with prudential norms.
Dr. Benjamin Amoah is the advisor to the Bank of Ghana governor. Now, Deputy Energy Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam has been appointed as the leader or the champion for the Ghana, as in the Ghana Extractive Initiative program. According to a statement issued from the Energy Ministry, the appointment was done in consultation with the Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. By this appointment, Dr. Amin would be the focal person in Ghana to promote openness and accountability when it comes to management of extractive resources. And that's all for business on Newsnight.
Joe, thank you very much. Now, industrialization seems to be a major dream of the Akufo-Addo administration as the government works hard to secure funding to build new factories across the country. Now, that was a major campaign promise in the lead up to the 2016 elections, but this is yet to be realized in full. As part of the industrial dream was the revamping of old abandoned factories that produce some of Ghana's consumables, including sugar for our breweries and jute sacks for cocoa farmers. Over the last 3 weeks, the state of these factories has been the focus of Joy News Agenda. My colleague Fifi Kumsin chronicles a few of these in the following report.
My last warning to you is that you all should stand firm behind us so that we can prove to the world that when the African is given a chance, he can show to the world that he's somebody.
This expression of confidence would translate into the building of hundreds of factories across Ghana, producing various items from food to shoes.
There's a giant dam that would produce vast quantities of cheap electricity.
But with governments over the years neglecting these factories, most of what would constitute the engine of an industrialized Ghana crashed.
The factory is rusting away. At least the machine should have been painted every 6 months. I'm sure government will spend a lot of money to repair it.
Joy News hit the ground, finding these relics of Nkrumah's New Ghana and others built by subsequent governments.
Didn't we use money to build this factory? For 2 years, it's puzzling that we can't find investors.
That's the situation at the Commander Sugar Factory, revamped with a $35 million loan secured from the Exim Bank of China. Its metal plates are now rusting away.
The well-coated and painted metal plates now look brownish, corroding as the day goes by.
Government claims it's looking for what it describes as a strategic investor.
As was mentioned by the Trades and Industries Minister, the Commander Sugar Factory requires a private sector partner with capitalization that would ensure.
And there are others. The Aveime Rice Factory is also corroding fast with all its inputs, including a light aircraft meant to apply chemicals.
If you are continuously using it, it will not be rusting like this because there's a constant heat that is going to the system. So the oxygen does not attach the metal to react with it.
The Kumasi Jute Factory ensured there was a constant supply of jute bags for cocoa farmers. That one too has been shut down for years.
We are looking forward to the government to revamp the factory so we can feed our children.
And the repercussions. There are many more such factories spread across the country left to rot. The Pualugu Tomato Factory, Aboso Glass Factory, Zwarungu Meat Factory, and many others that would have been a sure solution to Ghana's huge imports that are crushing the country's exchange rate figures. In the pursuit of economic independence, Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah had these words for Ghana.
That also entails hard work.
And that's Fifi Kumson's report there. But here's the economic cost to this reality. Joy News editor Araba Kumsing explores this in the following report.
Now, in the last 2 weeks, Joy News has brought you a number of features, stories on factories that have been out of production for a while now. We've brought you the story of the rusting Commander Sugar Factory, the idle Aveime Rice Project, the rotting Pualugu Tomato Factory, the dormant Ayensu Starch Factory, and the Kumasi Jute Factory. I want you to pay attention to what I'm about to tell you. Over $200 million worth of sugar is imported into the country each year, and yet the Commander Sugar Factory is rusting away. 60% of the fish we eat in Ghana is imported, and yet we have lakes, rivers, lagoons, and the sea. We import fresh tomatoes, ketchup, and canned tomatoes despite our fertile soils and the redundant Pualugu Tomato Factory. We import $1.2 billion worth of rice annually, imports which could have been significantly reduced if the Aveime Rice Project was up and running. Many of our foodstuffs are bagged in jute sacks from Ivory Coast, whilst the Kumasi Jute Factory wastes away. So I could go on and on and on, but what breaks my heart is that even toothpicks, these simple wooden toothpicks, these toothpicks are imported. I touched on just 5 items which cost the country almost $2 billion. That's $2 billion worth of jobs, resources, and forex shipped out of the country. This does not make sense. I repeat, it doesn't make sense. Now, as much as government says it is seeking to partner private firms to build more factories, could we revive the old ones rusting away so we can ease the pressure on the Ghana cedi and keep some jobs in the country? I hope you get the picture, Mr. President, because that's why we've been featuring stories about idle factories.
Well, Abrakum Singh with that. And that's it for a news night tonight. We want to cross over right now to the Marriott Hotel here in Accra, where the branding summit is underway.
That one man scorned and covered with scars, so strove with his last ounce of courage.